Falana to DSS, release Sowore with immediate effect. Human rights lawyer Falana on Wednesday took a swipe at the Department of State Security, DSS, for insisting on verifying the sureties of #RevolutionNow crusader Omoyele Sowore before his release. Falana, who was accused of playing to the gallery by the DSS on the continued detention of Sowore, blasted the security outfit for constituting itself into an appellate court. He noted that the Federal High Court attached no condition for the release on bail of Sowore. He said the DSS never contacted the 4 lawyers who waited several hours on November 7th for the release of Sowore and Adebayo Bakare, as they had promised, adding that the agency was aggravating the felony of contempt of court by asking sureties who had been verified by the trial court to report in his office for an illegal verification. Reacting to a statement by the DSS on why it was still holding Sowore, Falana said, on November 6th, the bailiff of the Federal High Court wanted to serve the order of court for the immediate release of Ms. Omoyele and Adebayo Bakare on the state security services. Under the pretext that the management had closed for the day, the court bailiff was asked to serve the order at 10 a.m. on November 7th. In the company of her 4 members of the defense team, the court bailiff served the order on that day. After the 4 lawyers had waited in vain for hours, the SSS asked them to go and that they would be contacted on phone to pick up the 2 detainees after consultations. But the SSS never contacted the lawyers. To our utter dismay, the SSS issued an incendiary statement on November 8th, wherein it was claimed that no one had shown up to receive both detainees. Yesterday, Tuesday, 2 members of the defense team, family members and friends of both detainees, reported to the headquarters of the SSS. Some journalists were also there to witness the release of both detainees. Instead of releasing both detainees to their lawyers and family members, the SSS fired tear gas and shot into the air. In the process, the lawyers, family members, and friends of both detainees were physically attacked by masked security operatives. Some of the journalists were seriously injured, having proved beyond any reasonable doubt that members of the defense team, family members, and friends of the 2 detainees had reported in the headquarters of the SSS to retrieve them. The story has now changed. The SSS has now said that it is only appropriate that those who stood shorty for Sowore present themselves and have him released to them. From the latest statement, it is crystal clear that the SSS has no scores to settle with Mr. Bakare. Hence, the SSS has decided not to invite his own shorties to collect him. It is hoped that the SSS will release him without any further delay. With respect to Mr. Sowore, we wish to state without any fear or contradiction that the SSS has apparently constituted itself into an appellate court over the Federal High Court. For the avoidance of doubt, no condition is attached to the order of court for the release of both detainees. Therefore, the SSS is aggravating the felony of contempt of court by asking sureties who had been verified by the trial court to report in his office for an illegal verification. In view of the reckless insinuations of the SSS, I am compelled to point out that my colleagues and I did not risk our lives for the purpose of substituting military dictatorship for civilian autocracy. It is pertinent to point out that suspects who were presumed innocent under the defunct military junta were not exposed to the crude intimidation that has become the lot of Sowore and Bakare. Even when 5 of us were charged with treasonable felony in May 1992, we were released after we had met the bail conditions. On that occasion, the SSS never asked our sureties to report after they had been verified by the trial court. I demand for nothing less for my clients under the current political dispensation, which ought to be anchored on the rule of law. Finally, I confirm that I have an official relationship with the DG of SSS, but since the commencement of the case of Sowore and Bakare, the DG has refused to pick my calls, while I have since become a personal non-grantor in the office of the SSS. With respect to the baseless allegation that I am playing to the gallery by demanding for the release of my client in line with the valid and substituting order of a competent law court, I shall take appropriate action under the law. Meanwhile, the SSS should release our clients from illegal custody and should stop exposing the country to unwarranted ridicule. So guys, it's good that there is this back and forth, arguments. When DSS came out, whether they are SSS or DSS, they came out and started saying all of these things. Even as a layman, as a lay person who is not even knowledgeable as far as law is concerned, as a professional in law, I just like, if the court had already given an order, your own is just to obey the order. The process at which the court gave the order, had already been concluded by the court. So all the processes they needed, they were satisfied with the order, with what they needed. There were conditions to be met for him to be released, and they met the conditions. So those conditions, are not meant for the DSS. Their own is just to say, okay, to hear from the court that they've been released. The processes at which the court went through is none of a DSS business. And I was just reasoning from that angle. And just like a Falana is saying that no court said Sureties must be present or show themselves to the DSS before the two gentlemen will be released. It was not so. And he's quoting even the experience that he went through too. He's been charged for this kind of a thing, and none of his Sureties were there to come and receive them. And like I said, Falana is too old for him not to have known the right thing to be done. You can imagine that these guys are just ridiculing themselves. They are just embarrassing themselves, to the whole world, exposing themselves to the whole world. You can see the flimsy excuses they've been giving. Oh, the first time they did not receive anything. Oh, when they came to give them the order, they tried, forming as if they had closed, telling them to come back the next day. And at the end of the day, the people still went with their lawyers according to what Falana is saying. It's good that Falana is replying them, is responding to all the allegations they are bringing, because of course he's not going to keep quiet. Even with that, we are not even professionals. We know that Falana will not be so myopic or naive not to have known the right thing to have been done. And yet these guys are just coming to tell us what is not. Those excuses are not tenable. Everybody knows that the excuses they are giving, they are not tenable. And we know where the whole thing is coming from. It still boils back to the president. He does not obey court order. And it is playing out. It's playing out. The DSS is looking for Sureties to come and receive this guy. And that was not, the court never said so, according to what Falana is saying. The court never said so. The process at which the court gave an order for him to be released is none of DSS business. They needed those conditions to say, okay, let him be released. So it is not your own responsibility to say you want to see the Sureties. Then what are they trying to do? Like Falana has said, they are trying to make themselves as court. If you knew quite all right that you didn't believe in court, why did you charge him in the first place? Because you expected, a particular judgment from the court. And that is why they are not happy with the whole thing. Because the guy, the people, the gentlemen, they've already met the bail conditions, because they never thought they were going to meet the bail conditions. And that's why they are bringing all manner of excuses. And they are embarrassing themselves. You can see the spokesperson of DSS, Peter Funaya, saying all manner of things. According to the global standard, that the people that came for Sowore, they are not eligible because they wanted to forcefully take Sowore from their facility. And they were trying to protect their facilities. That was why they are trying to, that it is a global thing. If it's a global thing, why are you not releasing this man? But to cut the long story short, they are just embarrassing themselves. They are just disgracing themselves, to the whole world. The whole world is watching. Like I always say, nobody is coming to fight for us. We are the one that we fight for ourselves. But every now and then, they want people to come and do business in Nigeria. It's not going to happen, because with all these things that are happening, nobody is ready to risk his investments or our investments. So it's a good thing that Falana has responded to the DSS allegations or arguments. And, for us as who are not really knowledgeable, as far as law is concerned. We know what could have happened because Falana would have known better, and he has responded to them very well. So guys, that's my own opinion. I would like to hear from you what you think about this whole thing. Thank you very much for always being there. Bye.